Aaron Rodgers reported to camp, but is he back in terms of the dynasty worry factor being gone? Jordan, here we are on the Footballguys Dynasty Show, and Aaron Rodgers. Is everything good in Green Bay now, and can we move forward with our elite quarterback being elite active for our dynasty teams?
He's back. Yeah, I'm all in. I think we got the angry Aaron Rodgers narrative going. He comes back with just the. Did you see the shirt? Did you see the office shirt?
It was so juicy. It was chili. It was Kevin's chili. Exactly.
It's awesome. I want to find that. The sales for that thing went up 10,000% overnight. So, yeah. I mean, I'm excited. I've got a couple of Rodgers Adams stacks going on, and I was just kind of like sitting on them, and yeah, like let's fire up the band. It's ready to go. I think this is a. If you just took the long view, sort of the patient view, and said, "Listen, I'm just going to avoid some of the nonsense," you are going to end up ahead of this offseason. I think is going to be one of the big takeaways from this offseason.
Yeah, and you're rolling multiple points because it's Aaron Rodgers who's been fading, and obviously, you get in August, you get in September, you start getting games, right in front of us. And a lot of times you start to see Dynasty ADP, the trade market kind of come back on some of these producing guys, guys like maybe Ezekiel Elliott, but Aaron Rodgers with some of the ambiguity. But it sounds like they're going to, patch things together. Not sure everything's fixed long term, but for what we care about is, hey, play the games, and then if you want to fix it by separating, separate ways in the offseason, so be it. Because Aaron Rodgers, he's going to be an elevator, and let's not pretend like beyond Devontae Adams, they have a ton. They haven't really, this wide receiver 2+ situation has been a question mark for a while, and Robert Tonyan's been a revelation. I think he's been a created revelation because of Aaron Rodgers. But I mean, if he goes somewhere else, he's going to be a lid lifter for the upside of everybody there. So I think it's been fascinating to watch Watson and Aaron Rodgers in terms of they've been just swooning in terms of their valuations, and yet they're two of the best quarterbacks we have. And so I think we're going to look back and look at this offseason and the buying opportunities. And if you were a seller on the worry, if you passed on them in startup drafts, if you did not buy additional shares, I think 1, 2, 3 years from now, you're going to just regret it as a dynasty GM.
You got to have the stomach for it. I think both of these, I think Houston, and I mean, obviously with Watson, he's got a lot of issues going on that's beyond just some of the team issues of him wanting a trade. He's got all the legal stuff, presumed innocent. We don't know necessarily where that's going to end up. But from just the team aspect, like Green Bay and Rodgers specifically, they're kind of like the couple that like, hey, you got like a group of friends, and it's like, 4 couples we're going to go out on a vacation together, right? Maybe we're like renting a house or whatever. And you're like, oh man, like, are they going to, like, they're fighting all summer. Like, are they going to actually make it on, the week-long trip? And like, all of a sudden they're like, yeah, of course we're in. Like, it's like 36 hours before the trip. You're like, yeah, of course we're going to be there. And then they get divorced in like 6 months. Like, that's kind of like what this angle looks like with them.
One last season in the sun, one last roll, let's do this thing. One last summer at the lake, right? Before everyone kind of goes off. 2 of them have kids. One of them, going through a divorce. Another one's going to change. Again, right? Another one's going to go overseas for a job. And it's just, it's never going to be the same again. Isn't there some line that they say it would be nice if they told us that we were in the good times when we were in them? Like where you look back and you're like, that was the great summer. That was the great year. Or, those final 2 years of college, or that year out of college, whatever it was. And you just don't know it maybe at the time that it was that perfect confluence of factors with, friends and maybe free time, or you were busy, but you were productive and you were loving it and the weather was great or whatever it was. And you were like, that was it. It's kind of like the summer of George, that's just, that's it, just with the juices dripping down your chin. I want to ask you about Deshaun Watson because, he is one. You mentioned having the stomach for it. And Watson feels like for months now, it's been having the stomach for it. It's highly interesting. If you are a connoisseur of dynasty profiles, then profile a tier, I would say. This is the offseason for you, I feel, because Watson is one, unquestioned. He was in that quarterback 2, 3, 4 range before any of this stuff happened. And if he ends up playing this year, it's a bonus. It's an absolute bonus because a lot of people wrote him off to 2022 or even beyond months ago. Have we reached the bottom? Are we actually venturing up with his reporting to Houston? The fact that we've been radio silent on all these civil cases, criminal cases. Yes, things could change at any moment with reports, but that's not where we are sitting today. And it's been pretty silent now for weeks.
Yeah, eerily silent is what I would say about the legal front for him. I tend to think that the play for him is to resolve this. I mean, I've done these cases from a couple of different angles in my non-football guy's career. I would be moving. I would have given him very specific advice, which is show up for training camp. Right? Let's not get ourselves in more financial trouble. Show up at training camp, be a good soldier for the team, and let's put out one fire at a time. And so that's one fire, and then the next fire is trying to figure out the civil legal battle and trying to avoid getting charged, and then we can address the trade, right? And that's I'll be interested to see, I don't know, I think if everything, if inertia just keeps going, he's the week 1 starter for them, right? I mean, I think that's probably the most likely outcome. I don't know how pretty that's going to be. I think that there's big name people around the NFL in terms of media that think he's going to get traded relatively soon. I don't know. It's an interesting thing. I mean, I think my bet would be he's their week 1 starter, but we'll have to see. But yeah, it's definitely, if you have the stomach, and it might not, this is one of those rides where it might not necessarily be you're over the top and on the downslide. It's kind of like you're climbing up a hill and you don't necessarily know when the top is going to be, when the pain's going to stop. It might tick up here and get real hard at some point in the near future in terms of if he gets charged, if, there might still be a suspension coming. We don't know. But I think the fact that he avoided the exempt list probably brings, I think it eliminates the really bad outcome, which is where he's on the exempt list for a year and then he's suspended on top of that, right? Which I think is that's the disaster outcome. I think that's probably the worst outcome in terms of being a dynasty GM for him. And if he's going to avoid that, I think you're probably on the uptick in terms of his, availability profile.
Sign up for the Football Guys daily email. That is over at footballguys.com/email. And some of the nuggets this week obviously included, and it's been for a while, tracking things like Deshaun Watson, all the iterations, the moving pieces, Aaron Rodgers. There's a lot of reaction pieces, links to other articles. I wanted to highlight, something that is very close for me because I play in a few IDP leagues. And I will just say, John Norton, one of the IDP guys over at Football Guys, absolutely crushes it. I'll mention it later in the show as well about the Football Guys premium membership, which is the Eyes of the Guru series. He's through 7 of the 8 divisions. He deep dives into all the IDP relevant and non-relevant players, gives you the why, goes through the scheme, goes through the backstory and profile of every player that's going to be relevant for you, regardless of the depth of your league. But you may not, it may be tough for you to weed through all the new content that's at Football Guys. A lot of that is linked in that daily email update. So you want to make sure you sign up at footballguys.com/free. And Jordan, another player in the news is Michael Thomas. He is one that we finally found out is actually a few hours ago. A lot of times on Tuesday night, we're just short of the news and the predictability of finding out what's going on for the week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. But we finally got it this week on the other side, which is Michael Thomas gets put on the PUP, and not just you can come off anytime, the 6 weeks of the season. That was something that was projected. It was within the range of outcomes, obviously, with that news report that he had the surgery in June. And you put him on a timetable that puts him somewhere in the middle of the season that he would be projected to be back. So the Saints, obviously, They're signing guys off the street. They're going to try to figure it out. Tre'Quan Smith is the most notable wide receiver there. But what was your biggest takeaway in terms of now knowing he's going to be on the shelf to open the season? Remaining pieces with the Saints, Michael Thomas himself from the Dynasty lens. Where do we kind of sit for you as the biggest takeaway?
I mean, here we go again. That was the first thing I said with all of the stuff last year. I mean, you're in the midst of a Hall of Fame arc, and there's going to be 2 massive seasons that are going to be absolutely disrupted. If not this one, a wash, So, and it kind of feels like it's an Odell Beckham track, honestly. If we're going to harken back to a different player, it kind of feels a lot like that trajectory. And it doesn't feel good being on the, hey, it's been 24 months since he's been that guy, which I think if we talk, at July 27th, 2022, it's going to be how we feel, right? That's kind of the impression that I get. I think, it's tough to bail. If I could get a future first Superflex, I think I'd take it. But it's tough to bail, and I don't think you're really getting that right now.
Okay. Yeah, it's a very liquid market. It seems like I've seen him traded for far less than you would kind of assume his profile is. You hearken Odell Beckham, and we'll see what happens with Michael Thomas situationally. We know the Saints aren't in a great situation. They're going to need to adapt and be kind of lean and mean with what they do cap wise. With maybe the quarterback situation, how does that look in 2022? With not a lot of allegiance for Winston, with Taysom Hill, and kind of figuring that out on the fly, and not a lot around Michael Thomas, to be fair, either, with Alvin Kamara. And then you say, question mark, what else? And I kind of have tepid expectations for the whole offense, that it was going to go through Michael Thomas. And if it's not, Tre'Quan Smith hasn't really done the alpha thing. I do think his vertical game is a good fit with Jameis Winston. We'll see how that jives in terms of volume. And then Adam Troutman, again, it's not like he had elite pedigree. He has an okay profile, but to project him year 2 to just vault up because the situation is so good for targets that he's going to suddenly see 125 and be a top 8 tight end, I think that is rich as well. So I just, again, have tepid expectations for what a success for the first 4, 6, 8 weeks of the season look like. Obviously, Michael Thomas, if they can kind of hang around, be relevant in a 17-game season and get to the point with Thomas week 7, 8, 9, where he's looking like himself, then I think it's a different conversation there for Winston and a lot involved. I actually wonder, if that passing game is not going to be, as dynamic, as productive without Michael Thomas, maybe do we see more Taysom Hill? Even if Winston isn't doing something wrong, Taysom Hill just infusing a playmaker a little bit more, even if it is Winston the starter and Taysom Hill mixed in. Maybe now it's more of a committee than the plan was with a healthy Michael Thomas.
170 targets for Alvin Kamara. Can we get it? Like just
bushel basket. Bushel basket. Kamara in the slot and Latavius Murray as the running back du jour, the 1A running back, Kamara the playmaker going around the dial there. That's not a bad idea, honestly. So we'll see. I mean, maybe they're in the market to actually someone that's a cast off from another team here in a few weeks. Is that someone that they bring in? But this is a major moving piece, as you mentioned, a centerpiece element of a passing game that had the potential to keep grooving on from those Sean Payton designed days. Chad Parsons, Jordan McNamara, episode 63, Football Guys Dynasty Show. Want to remind you the Football Guys mobile app is back in 2021. Those custom projections, they're going to be synced where you can dominate your waiver wire trades, and your rosters are up to date. No worries with your synced platforms there. And it's available on Apple, Google Play stores. So everything you need, everything you love for Football Guys, all into a beautifully delivered and designed app. Time for some Dynasty trades here. And FFPC, I saw a pretty interesting one over there in the Shark Pool where we pull trades from. Najee Harris straight up for Saquon Barkley. So you've got an incoming round 1 running back. You've got Saquon Barkley. A lot of people are hand-wringing here. And so Harris hot, Saquon Barkley people concerned. Where do you stand here? Straight up trades at the same position are relatively rare.
Yeah. Wow. That's a 1-for-1. Like, that's a choose your stand. I mean, I think I absolutely get the hand wringing on Barkley, and it's funny because we have said, I mean, at least I have said for a while, like, why isn't there more concern about his price? Because if you look in the rarest of rare profiles of guys that haven't fallen in value after doing very little for he had for basically a year and a half, a season and a half. Those guys usually fall in price. We just talked about Odell Beckham Jr. We've seen sort of that arc. Barkley hasn't had that happen. So it's interesting that we get all the way here, and that's where, this is where the fallout happens. I still think I'd take him over Najee Harris. They're not that far apart in age, which is an interesting way to look at that too.
Yeah, that was going to be the interesting. I was going to say, I think they're within a year, which it seems like Barkley's been around a while. Harris hasn't even set foot on the field yet.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I do get it. And I actually think if you're willing to, talking about having the stomach for it, it's a different position and I think a different set of outs that you're looking for. But if you've got the stomach for it, like Barkley's not a bad one to go out there and hunt. And, maybe I wouldn't necessarily surround it with a ton of core guys that I would offer to him, but sort of see if you can, the training camp risers are a good way to sort of attack some of these guys, the Michael Thomases, the Barkleys, when people are getting nervous.
Yeah. And yeah, profile hunting basically. And yeah, one thing that I probably mentioned a few months ago, that one of my plan of actions, and again, it worked out. This is a 2020 hindsight thing, but I stand by what the philosophy was, which is 2 or 3 of my targets with Cam Akers plus offers this offseason, because I thought he was elevated, were going after Barkley, going after McCaffrey with Akers plus offers. And I got some of those done, one for McCaffrey, one for Barkley in my recollection. So again, that worked out in terms of the injury. We'll see how it works out by acquiring those other players. But the philosophy was unproven profile for something that has been productive in NFL. And they're coming off of injury themselves, but they're kind of beat up. But we've seen big time from those guys with their relative production to date. This one is going to be right up your alley. It's a half PPR 1 quarterback league because you're getting Josh Jacobs in a pick for a player that's never played. So let's do this. Javonte Williams for Josh Jacobs and a 23 first.
Oh my God.
Jacobs is a late first, Jacobs is a late first, Jordan. You can agree or disagree with that premise, but it's reality.
Wow. Is this super flex too?
No.
Okay, it doesn't matter. We're doing Jacobs. This is a drop your infant on the smash accept scale. Like, this is as high as it gets in terms of urgency of going and doing it.
Well, just know most people with Javonte Williams would want Jacobs plus for him. So you got to be on the other side of that deal overall, because you'd have to be a seller on Williams to get Jacobs plus, basically. Yeah.
I don't know. I guess maybe you could go from, Barkley to Javonte Williams in a first, and then Javonte Williams to Josh Jacobs in a first, and there we go.
So you got Jacobs in 2 firsts. You just keep going. Just keep going. Keep parlaying this. And then Jacobs, when he's the lead back yet again, he's churning it out. We'll assess that situation as we come. He'll become valuable.
Argument that Drake's better than him, by the way.
He'll become a value in season. People will realize he's okay again in season when he's actually getting a truckload of touches.
Running back 6 finish.
Exactly. Exactly. Do not. Yeah. One thing I just can't say enough is go ahead. Just keep fading the discounted round 1 running backs. Just keep doing it.
Right.
Just keep doing it. You want to say that Travis Etienne can't play. He's going to be a wide receiver in the NFL. Okay. You live by that sword, you die by that sword. I'll see you in a couple of years. We'll see how it turns out.
This is the player he reminds me of. This is going back a while. Is actually Matt Forte, and they had a very similar arc, which was after year 2, multiple hits, pretty good performance, and after year 2, Forte fell, and then I think that might have been right around the time that he posted I think he had back-to-back like top 10 seasons, and right after that. It's a really interesting, it's a extremely rare profile to be where Jacobs is at in his career and be just a falling knife. I mean, everything other than what the market says points in the other direction.
Yeah, all you have to do, it's funny. This offseason is the epitome of just kind of sit here and wait for the market to say silly things and go, oh, okay. Yeah, so that's where you want me to go. Got it. I'm tracking. I know what you're telling me. I'm reading your signals.
Got
All
it.
right, 12 team super flex, and we've got an Akers sell. So it's always a gauge the market, check the wristwatch. Is this the right palatable point? We've got Cam Akers and a 23 third. The picks are relatively irrelevant. I'll just tease that. Akers and a future third for Daniel Jones and a future fourth.
It's got to be super flex.
It is. Is he wearing glasses? Is he wearing a hat? Guess who?
Oh man, this feels like how much credit?
Kissing your sister. It's because I said Daniel Jones. That's what got Jordan all uncomfortable in his chair. For those not watching.
Okay, all right. Oh, Daniel Jones.
At least it's super flex. Is it rushing only at quarterbacks or?
Yeah. Do we get positive points for turnovers? How are we doing this? How are we scoring this?
Fumbles enabled.
God,
for not breaking out longer into your career.
I think you give me Jones.
And try to turn that into something else.
It doesn't feel good.
I don't feel comfortable with my answer.
Hey, what's the? So you and I haven't even discussed this off air. So
here's where Jordan is sick and tired of talking about Daniel Jones, and he just wants to pivot completely.
Yeah, let's pivot completely.
In 3, 2, 1.
What do you think about the injury history with running backs on Achilles? Do you find that persuasive at all?
Persuasive meaning
that this is a really bad sign for Akers?
Well, I think a lot of people, rightly or wrongly, are going to read into what happens with Marlon Mack this year. That first touch for Marlon Mack, the first time we see if he has any juice on a big cut versus a linebacker or in the open field, that'll be sort of the, oh, okay, here we are. Well, how about, what was it, the report of the Olympian that came back in like 3 months or something?
Yeah, I mean, they're Russian, so
yeah,
we know how that happened.
No rules.
Right.
Anyway, but yeah, so I still am of the ilk. This is the injury with the position that you got to show it to me. It's really unfortunate, and again, rooting for him. I mean, we talked about this, but it's just, yeah, I mean, the time value of holding him, yeah, can you stash him on IR? Yeah, but you're going to get to next July, and what is it going to take? Like, what is it going to take to feel good? And are the Rams going to wait? This is like your prom saying, I got the measles. I'm not going, Jordan. I'm not going. And it was 2 weeks away. And do you really expect, she's like, hey, I'm better now. She shows up the night of. I'm better now. Are you really sitting there holding out on the measles girl? Or did you find other plans? Did you pivot to plan B? Or now your new plan A? Do you go back to Measles Mary? I don't know. I don't think you go back to Measles Mary.
I've been in this situation before. It didn't work out well for me, Chad.
Here's the iterations. You have Darrell Henderson, performs well. All of a sudden, he's who the people drafted him at 110, 112 in rookie drafts and saying he just supplanted Gurley instantly, that he's that guy. Or Henderson falls on his face. Things don't go well. He's injured. Maybe he's not that great. And then you get to the offseason. So the Rams are drawing dead. We've got Akers coming off an Achilles. And frankly, I mean, what? He's six months removed. And then you've got Henderson. All right, we know what we have. We don't like it. You think they're going through free agency and the draft and just going, well, see you in August, Cam. We really need you. This is going to be awesome. There's like 0% chance of that.
Right.
I mean, even if he's related, even if Cam Akers is related to somebody in the front office, I don't think he gets that treatment. So that's where you're going to sit. You're going to sit with Cam Akers. If he does work out, you're still, I think, situationally not going to feel great about it in 12 months because there's going to be ambiguity. You're going to have to sit through, biting your lip, free agency, the draft. They're going to do something. There's a lot of churn at running back. They could bring in Leonard Fournette. They could do a bunch of stuff. Who knows what they're going to do? So just fair warning. Fair warning.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's unlikely. When you give teams opportunities to improve their team, they generally do it.
Yeah.
They don't say no. One more here. FFPC 1 quarterback. Akers and a second next year for a first.
You said FFPC 1 quarterback?
Yes, sir.
I think you take the first.
Right. I think you take a first for Akers. If you don't want to take a second, I get it. If someone's offering you a second and something marginal, I get it. But I'm telling you, a first is possible. A first is possible out there because you know what? Daniel Jones is a first in Superflex. So these two deals are basically similar in that. And like you said, you say all the time, FFPC, you definitely treat those picks as random. Could it turn out to be 202 for 110? Yes. But could it turn out to be 210 for 102? Yes.
And it's liquid too. Like then you don't.
Yeah.
See, the other thing too is you don't have to worry about carrying Akers through the cut down. Right.
Exactly.
Like you don't have to worry about that. You got the pick. It's fine. And then, like what I mean, this is a classic case of what we do. Like we're doing it's funny because the NBA drafts here, we do basically the NBA version of, we're just going to kick the can on picks. Like we're just kicking the can. Like you and I have 3 future firsts in our FFPC league that we co-own together. And it's like, hey, we got a first. It's like middle of the round. Like, let's get a future first. And like, let's take another shot.
Let's get a player we like or trade to the second, but let's get another one. And eventually doing that process, it'll end up being golden, right? Eventually it'll end up 101, 102, something like that. You'll get the right pick, the right combo, the right confluence of factors that all of a sudden the injuries hit and you got the right team that thought they were middle of the road and they, or actually in FFPC, you kind of need middle of the road because you need them to win at the end. You need them to win in the consolation bracket to actually get 101. That's the way it works. So
if you're trying to win a lottery, you don't buy one ticket, you buy a lot of them.
Yeah.
And
what's interesting? What's interesting in FFP, now I'm talking through this, is that the philosophy of, because in other leagues, a lot of times you get the middle teams that overrate their status of like, oh, I'm going to win the championship. And then they trade away their first and you get that middle of the road pick that hopefully turns early. But in FFPC, it has a better chance to turn early because if that middle of the road team is actually middle of the road, they're one of the best teams in the consolation bracket. So you got a really good chance there. All right, moving over to the Dynasty quotes of the week from the Footballguys forum. And here we go. I don't value seconds extremely high because of the high bust potential.
Yes, they have a high bust potential. I'm actually doing some work on this week. I have this theory that I've been sort of kicking around that I'm sort of deep diving, and I was getting a little geeky in Starbucks.
Never
by the
happened
way, you'll
once
appreciate
for Jordan.
this. You'll appreciate this.
Starbucks
actually
is that
they actually asked me for
astronomy
interior
place
design questions. They were like, "Hey, you're in here a lot. What do you think about how this is set up?" And I was like, "You're talking to me? Like I've made it. I made it in the Starbucks hierarchy."
Well, I like this chair. I've been glued to it. I like this one. This is a good sturdy chair.
I think future picks tend to be underrated just by the market in terms of like their usefulness. And that even comes like there's a significant part of that happens before you make the pick. And so that would be one thing that I would say about that. Like you can get, if you want to move her on the board, right? I think it's really valuable. If you want to, hey, there's a chance that random pick turns early in the round. And if you have a random pick and it turns into 201 and it's a random future second, it turns into 201. It's actually pretty valuable in super flex. So I think that they tend to be undervalued. If we're just looking at the raw production value of the pick, yeah, I mean they struggle to meet what I think people expect of them in terms of production. I think it's like a 33% hit rate, something like that. Depending on how long you want to measure it, 33, 38%, somewhere in that range. But that's not the end all be all, right? You can flip them, you can, package them with another player and make it a first, right? You're constantly doing those things with the picks. I think you can come out positive EV.
Yeah, you hit on a couple things I was going to focus, which is number one, the end game of did this player become a fantasy starter for an entire season or most of a season can be one measure. I would say is you usually get flip opportunities, these micro moments, and really we're fractioning the dynasty calendar because it could be something that happens during camp. It could be a preseason darling. It could be a pop game or a month as a starter as a primary backup running back. So you have these moments that it may not trigger the hit on the column, when you get 3 years removed and you're tracking historical data. But it doesn't mean that second wasn't worth a first or wasn't liquid and didn't have moments of being highly dynasty relevant for your lineup or in the trade market. I like what you said about being liquid. It's an asset. The player itself turns into less of an asset when you pick somebody, and higher variance than that pick itself. And I find in leagues, first, some leagues are very sticky. A lot of owners don't want to give that up, but yet seconds, pretty accessible. Thirds, really accessible. And so if you just start taking what is the league going to give me? If they're giving me seconds, I'll take seconds. I'll give 2 or 3 of them if I'm consolidating to get into the first and get a player I want. I just got a first. The seconds were a lot easier to get than trying to get that first was, a year ago. So all those concepts. And like you mentioned with being able to trade those picks, seconds, you can trade for veterans. You might be able to get in season a team falling out of it. You can buy Julio Jones for a second. You can easily buy a strong quarterback in one quarterback if you need to fix something for a second. You can easily buy a tight end that you can plug and play if you so choose. You have a lot of options with seconds on the retread veteran marketplace that might be on 1 to 2 year windows. So that has utility probably beyond the player if you select an incoming rookie. All right, next one. Cam Akers GMs are upset enough right now that they would probably consider most offers insulting. A smart Akers owner wouldn't take a second round pick this early after the injury.
I think that's right. And listen, you can use it as a package piece in season, right? And I think you can, he's not going anywhere. Outside of something extreme happening, his value is not going to change that much between now and, I don't know, January. So if at any point, right, if there's somewhere along the line, if you suffer another injury or whatever, or you see an uptick guy or whatever, like there becomes another piece you want to package, and whether that's another depressed asset or whether you want to sell that to someone that's a building team, whether you want to, whatever your angle is, right? It's an asset that you can potentially flip that. So I wouldn't just bail, right? There's marketability in the way that you might use him, even if you don't see him necessarily as like a core level asset at this point. You can potentially move him, keep playing the long game, right? You don't just need to bail. You still have time, right? It's not, it's not completely collapsed yet.
Yeah, and the other thing I would say is you get to in season, and again, right now everyone's a contender. Outside of rare scenarios where a team is in a multi-year, they just took on a lot of water, and it would take a lot for them to contend this year. But when you get to week 6, week 8, and teams are overtly out of the race, then Akers is going to be someone that they're going to look at. Someone that's not going to produce now. You combine Akers with something else, you might be able to get one of their better players coming back that helps you, the contender. So the team directions get more declared as you get into the season. So right now, it's a little more ambiguous on the have and have-nots of the league, whereas you start putting wins and losses together. Now you're going to get someone looking ahead firmly to 22, looking at Cam Akers, looking at your picks, looking at other things, and probably willing to give you, an auto start player for some sort of package that you can provide that isn't offering you much right now. So with Akers, like you mentioned, the market really isn't going to change too much between now, week 4, week 8, etc. I'd take Elijah Moore straight up for Cam Akers.
I think he's probably more liquid. I think that's the range you're dealing with. You're kind of dealing with, we talk about he's like a fringe first, second this year, right? that's kind of what you're dealing with. I think he's probably more liquid. I think there's other people at Footballguys that like him more than I do. But I don't think we've done a lot worse trades.
That's Jordan singing the praises of Elijah Moore. There's worse trades. Here we go. We got one more relevant to the Rams situation from this past week over in the Shark Pool and the Dynasty Trades Forum. I like getting a first for Darrell Henderson. If you're looking to win now, Henderson may do that, but I do believe the Rams will add another running back. And if it is someone solid, that could really hurt his value.
Yeah, I'd take a first for him. I take it first.
And we've talked about it a couple times. I've been surprised the market's pretty weak on him. Like he's being traded for seconds far more than first. So you got people taking that in a second. You actually mentioned, I mean, you almost pivot sometimes and be like, oh, I guess I'm open to taking some shares. You know, if a second is the market for a day 2 running back entering year 3, I believe, that, has an open opportunity and needs someone added, I mean, is this different than Mike Davis's situation right now, where you go weak depth chart, but glaring opportunity unless they add somebody? And the fear is they add somebody, but I think you've broken down before. Who are you truly scared of in those two settings?
Not
from the reasonable? Yeah, you mentioned nobody. I think I'm a little more optimistic on someone like, say, a Le'Veon Bell or whatever, of actually affecting a depth chart than you've mentioned on the show.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably him and AP. I don't think Gurley's an option for them. They basically paid Gurley to not play for them last year. So, that would sort of be my angle there. I'm trying to look at guys that are potential cast-off guys from other teams. Breida's a name that I think should stick with Buffalo. Like, he could be their best running back, but like, that's a name. I think someone probably is the last man out in Tampa, right? I'd be surprised if they carried all those guys. Maybe one of them would have some value if it's like Ronald Jones to them, like that could clog it up a little bit more. But those are really the names. And honestly, there's not a lot of people in August that are out there that are that useful at the running back position. There's just not. And so I guess the other thing too is I would say is like, hey, as a guy who's got a fair amount of Mike Davis, and I have a decent amount of Henderson, like having my own, they're actually insulating each other right now, because if one of them takes a hit on someone, it makes it less likely the other one's going to. So I think there's an interesting interchange there.
Yeah, and my biggest point about those two, and now they're kind of joined at the hip similarly, is that at worst, let's say they're in some committee, right? I mean, they're still productive players that could benefit from, the new player not adapting well, not being ready to go, or an injury occurs. They're still going to be one of the best injury away. This is absolute worst case scenario. Still one of the best injury away guys out there in that short list, that short subset of high upside guys that can affect your season. And so you still don't, throw those guys away for like, oh yeah, just give me a second, I want to get rid of them. No, those are the guys you keep on the back end, and you have 5, 6, 7 of them. And at any point in time, you hope to have 2 or 3 supplementing the players that you already expect at the position to be in your lineup. So that's how you pummel people, and you start 4 or 5 starting running backs, and you just say, come get me, because it's going to be tough with you starting wide receivers. It just will be. All right. If you're into shows like this, you're a serious fantasy player. Consistently winning fantasy football is a challenge. It takes a lot of time. That Footballguys premium subscription, and the paywall is up. Sign up. You've got a couple different package options. Do you like to add the DFS? Otherwise, you can look at the regular membership. I've mentioned before the My Footballguys. You can sync all of your leagues. It's going to highlight your players. It's going to highlight who's available. Sigmund Bloom does a great job as well, highlighting the waiver spectrum on a weekly basis. Who should you be interested? And the software does it for you. Who's available in your league? So you need to get the edge, but you also need to make the winning decisions in less time. So the main things are save time, get the edge. And if, again, you're a Dynasty GM, you're listening to the show, you're probably in a few leagues. So if you're in 5 leagues, 10 leagues plus, the time value of going through the waiver wire, setting your lineups, having that speed, having that process of the Footballguys projections, So you're going to get all that league winning information. You're signing up. You're going to through the entire year, and you're even going to have information as the season is ending when we get trading, when we get the waiver wire a lot of times in Dynasty leagues opening back up in January. I already highlighted some of the new content. One of them is that Eyes of the Guru from John Norton series, divisional deep dives with his IDP projections going forward. Also, the updates are so quick between the ADP, the projections, the rankings. This is the hot zone from now until week 1. And you need to be up on the updates, everything that occurs. That's from the daily email all the way through to all the driving projections and rankings going through the site. In this episode, we discussed all of the hot button players. Aaron Rodgers, Deshaun Watson, Michael Thomas getting clarity and some news over the past few days. We talked about all the different angles with Dynasty trading. Josh Jacobs comes up a lot, Cam Akers. We also mentioned Saquon, Barkley, insulating yourself with picks. And again, all of the offerings over at Footballguys. I am Chad Parsons. He is Jordan McNamara. And until next time, good luck in your Dynasty leagues.
Fear the beard. Oh, he made it.
Happy birthday, Marla.